So, one of my sisters who I met on here, I think her name is Monique, the Monique the Physique or something like that. But she's a beautiful trans girl from Baltimore, and she asked me to talk about my Hurricane Katrina story. And so I'm going ahead and talk about it now because I don't know when I'm gonna feel like talking about it again. Um, so Katrina happened in 2005. I was 28 years old. Um, I am 48 now. So Katrina happened 20 years ago. Whew. I had just tested positive in 2003, and Katrina happened in 2005. Now, mind you, 20 years ago, we hadn't really got to the one pill a day. We wasn't really having the U equals U conversation yet. And so testing positive was a really dark moment for me. It was a really, really dark moment. Like, child, I was planning my wheel. I was a mess. Like, I was a mess. And the ambulance passing, so I want to acknowledge. I like to make the infinity symbol. But I was in a really, really dark place at the time. I think I have a picture of that day. So I'm gonna put the picture right here. That's me with my daughter. Her name was Little Bit. She passed away around 2013, if I'm not mistaken. We had a memorial for her. God Goddess. Um, she's with God Goddess. She's with the ancestors now, or she'd have been reincarnated back into this reality. But yeah. So Katrina coming was already a dark period for me, and what I like to say is Katrina saved my life because I was self destructing because of the diagnosis. So, um, I had experimented with nose candy. I never shot up anything but a hormone, but I was doing a little nose candy. I had tried a little heroin before. I think I even tried a little, they used to call it ice or Tina. I may have tried that once or twice. I think I tried that once or twice after Katrina. I wasn't really like, I don't think that we was really like, I don't think people was really doing ice before Katrina. I think people was just like doing, act. People was doing nose candy, and people was doing wrong. But I had experimented, with the nose candies of different kinds, the Rhone and the and the Pilsner. I was powdering my nose. But when I got diagnosed, I was cooking it up and putting it on my wife. Solid. Solid as a rock. That's what we're smoking. The pipe is still hot. So anyway, I was in a very dark space. I don't even like saying dark because I'm dark skinned. I was in a very chaotic place. I was in a very damaged place. I was in a place that was harmful to my existence. I was self-destructing. And I was one of the girls. Like before the diagnosis, this is why, my hat's off to girls who can safely do escorting and X work, that could still do that, and maintain. But it was too much of an energy swap for me, and I was in changing energy with all those different, men who were just coming to take and, benefit them, and it wasn't worth the offering, like the donation was, and I think that's what I was struggling with. The donations weren't worth my peace. I think that was gonna reject this system and that was gonna reject patriarchy was coming, and it took all of these obstacles to make me, I was forged from the fire, and in this case the water. So anyway, I was self-destructing from, like the Christian religion, from the ex work, from the escorting, from having all of these, you know, and I'm not a racist person, but I will say this. Um a lot of my clientele was Caucasian, and they were using me. They were trying, and they were also trying to mold me into something that wasn't me. They were trying to turn me into a soccer mom. They were trying to turn me into a bootleg white woman. And um they were stripping me of my essence. They were stripping me of my connection to my indigenous ancestors, to my ancestors who would never, and my ancestors who were erased, my ancestors who weren't celebrated, or who are not celebrated during Black History Month, who are not celebrated. um we don't talk about them. We talk about all of the Black people who played the game. We talk about all the Black people who said, "Yes, I could do this. I'm gonna thrive in this. I'm a endure. I'm gonna elevate in this." Those are the Black people we celebrated, and it was normal. And so I remember I used to see white girls with sugar daddies, and they would be taking care of them, and giving them everything that they wanted, and I couldn't get a sugar daddy, and I used to be judging like the white girls. I used to be like, "Oh, she's strung out on drugs." I would never, like, if I got a sugar daddy, I would never act like that. Child, if I get a sugar daddy, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. Child, I got a sugar daddy and I was just like them, strung out. I was just like I was just like I was no different. It was no different than the white girls. Um, the only thing that I could probably say happened different is that I think a lot of my white siblings, a lot of the white girls passed away because the addiction consumed them. The addiction overtook them. And if it was not for the glory and the grace of my ancestors, there go I. It could have been me. Like, I'm not even saying it could have been me. A couple of times it was almost me. You know what I'm saying? I've never been hospitalized for anything like that. I've never been hospitalized due to being positive. I've never been hospitalized due to addiction. I have, been in a rehabilitative space. I have went to a rehab before, and those spaces weren't even safe, especially in New Orleans, because you go in there and people would be calling you punks and eggs, by day, and at night they'd be trying to climb on top of your back. So the safest place for me oftentimes was just to get arrested to go and get clean. I would actually get into it with the police when I was trying to get clean. Anyway, um, my sugar daddy lived in California, um, in LA, I think. Or was it San Francisco? It was either LA or San Francisco. And he sent me a train ticket to come to California. He was going to, help me get set up in California. I was so caught up, I could not leave. I couldn't even go and get my ID, because you need ID to get on the train. I couldn't even go and get my ID to get on the train and leave. That's how caught up I was. And it's probably a good thing that I did not go to California at that time, because I probably would have got hooked up. I probably would have been on Skid Row, child. It probably would have been a mess up there. Like, and then I don't know, like, when I change environment, I do tend to shift. But California, there's so much. I feel like California is such a shallow place, and such a place that's about optics, and I don't know if I would have cared for the person that I would have become. And it's unfortunate because California is named after a beautiful black indigenous queen who was a warrior. So, like, it's unfortunate that I probably would have went up there and turned into something that I don't know if I would have been, exactly proud of. But anyway, um when he sent me the ticket to come to California, I would not go. I was just spiraling down, and I was a Christian at the time. I was heavy. Like, I was one of them get on my knees calling on Jesus. I was giving you slave teas. I remember one time I got arrested for walking down the street doing X work, and I never forget, I was in the back of the car. I figured out that it was an undercover cop, but I was in the back of the car, and I told him, I knew he was an undercover, and I told him, I said, y'all can stop acting, because the other police officer pulled up and he started pretending. I said, y'all could cut the act. I said, I know you a cop. I know you're an undercover cop. I know what's going on. So they started misgendering me and talking to me crazy. And I never forget, I got on, when they put me in the police car, I got in the back seat of the car. I took my wig off and I started crying, and I started saying, thank you, Jesus, because I was happy that I was going to jail, because I knew I was doing too much. Like, I was delusional. I thought I was sexy. I thought I was dropping the A-ball. I was so skinny. My skin was dry. And I just had a moment of clarity, and I was just in the back seat of the car. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And I was crying, and I took my wig off and I humbled myself. And it was so crazy because he stopped misgendering me then, because I was praying to his white God. Let me stop. But that did work to my benefit in that time, because I was supposed to get violated because I was on probation. So I could have did a year in jail had he not messed up my paperwork, because my energy, because he really started being nice to me after he saw me in the back seat of the car crying. He was like, you gonna get right in, you gonna get right there, you gonna get clean there, you gonna be okay. Like, his whole energy shifted, his whole energy changed. And he messed up my paperwork, because if that would have got to my PO, I was supposed to get violated, but I didn't get violated. So doing like um I only ended up doing like 74 days, when I was supposed to do a year. So anyway, all of this is right around Katrina. So I had another sugar daddy, but he could like help out, but he wasn't like, I'ma pay your rent, and I'ma get you a car, and I'ma pay your car. No, he wasn't that type of sugar daddy. That sugar daddy was living in California, but I couldn't get there because I was so caught up. But the one that I had in New Orleans, he was, I'm gonna make sure you eat. I'm gonna make sure you have a roof over your head. I'm gonna make sure you have clothes on your back. I'm gonna make sure you don't look thrown away, in your addiction. I'm gonna make sure you okay. So he was that kind of sugar daddy. So I never forget the night Hurricane Katrina was about to hit, I had a routine. My I was gonna go out and get full. I was gonna go out, get full, get me a piece of trade, and I was gonna ride the storm out. I sure was. I was gonna ride the storm out, honey. I was gonna, cause I was on the second floor. So even if it did a little flood, and I'm on the second floor. I was staying in a hotel, that was ran by this gay man, this gay Puerto Rican man, Latina man named Mr. Robert. And Mr. Robert used to give us jobs like, like doing housekeeping. And so we come home from jail, because we was going to jail all the time. So come home from jail, Mr. Robert would give us a job. We'll do little shows and stuff over there. Like, Mr. Robert had created a community. He'll give the girls housekeeping jobs so they could, pay for their room when they come home from jail. And we'll be in weeklies. And it was like efficiency apartments for us. And it was a whole bunch of the girls that stayed over there. It was called a Friendly Inn. And this was in the East. And the East flooded really, really bad. But I'm going to get to that. So anyway, when I went out to the French quarters, my goal was I was gonna find me a piece of trade, get me some act with all of iron, and get freaky. That's where I was at with it. I was gonna give me a couple of stones, put it on a pipe, and I was gonna have the trade and ride the storm mail because in Louisiana we used to hurricanes. So that's how I was going to self medicate and endure. But when I went out that night, my sugar daddy, the one who, is the help out sugar daddy, he was like, you need to come by me. You need to go and come by me. And my house is safer. Because he lived way in Metairie. Like he lived in the farther parts of Metairie. So he lived away from the area that was less likely to flood. And anybody who know anything about New Orleans, Kenner and Metairie is more white people. It's more lighter people. Ninth Ward in the east is more black people. So and I was living in a heavenly melanated area. So I ignored him, I ignored him at first. Then I came home and I watched the news and I saw Mayor Ray Nagin on the news. And Mayor Ray Nagin said he broke script because how they be talking on the news. They try to stay calm, they try not to show emotion, and they try to give you the news in a calm and kind of like monotone voice. But child, Ray Nagin said, and I never forget because I was high when he said it. Ray Nagin said, y'all better get out of here. Y'all better get out of here. Y'all better get out of here. And so when I heard him break script and I never heard, that's what convinced me that it was gonna be bad. And to this day, I think that that's why he went to prison because they found reasons to put charges on him and send him to prison. And to this day, in my mind, can't nobody convince me that that's not the reason why that man didn't go to prison. And it's so funny because when Hurricane Katrina hit, I remember 2 weeks before Hurricane Katrina hit, I was getting on my knees praying every day to be delivered from addiction, to be delivered because I missed when I missed my train ticket to California, I knew it was bad. And so I was on my knees praying and I was by my sugar daddy house, fat rewind, sitting in front of the computer one night, and Eric Benet had just broke up with Halle Berry and he had came out with that song, A Hurricane. A hurricane. Sometimes it's the only thing that can wash away the pain. A hurricane. A hurricane. It's the only thing that can bring you back again. And I played that song over and over and over and over and over and over again, watching the visuals, the video with the hurricane in it. I watched that video. I played that video over and over and over again for about a week straight. Like, that was the only song I was listening to. I kept playing that song. 2 weeks later, Hurricane Katrina hit. Like I don't know if it was a warning or a manifestation, but literally 2 weeks later, me in the process of listening to that song and constantly praying to be delivered from that addiction and to be free from that addiction and for my life to change and for my life to shift. 2 weeks later, Hurricane Katrina. So I lost everything in the storm. I lost all my pictures, most of my pictures predating because I didn't have nothing. I didn't even have identification when I relocated to Atlanta. But I listened to him that night and I didn't bring any clothes because I had clothes by his house. I didn't believe that it was going to flood, but just in case. And I didn't think to take anything. Y'all have to excuse me if you hear my stomach bubbling. I'm fasting, so ain't nothing in there. But yeah, I literally didn't bring any. I didn't even bring my ID because I wasn't thinking like that. I was using. So but I did have enough sense to get out the building, and I left my key with I left my key with one of my trans sisters who was living downstairs. Her name was Candy. And Candy had to use the room. She because it flooded to the second level. And I remember her telling me that they was one of the people that had to be rescued by helicopter from off the roof. And so but she I remember her telling me how she had to swim to the store to break into the store to get food, and there was dead rats in the water, dead cats in the water, dead dogs in the water, and I don't know if I would have been able to handle it. So they had to be rescued from the roof. That's when they were saying um George Bush was flying over with the helicopters and wasn't seeing it for nobody. My daughter, she was actually in the Superdome with her boyfriend, and they relocated my oldest daughter, and she's actually in like one of the documentaries. I can't remember what platform it's on, but there's a moment where you could see her in a documentary, her and her boyfriend. But I was safe in between Metairie and Kenner. But the gag is like we was in this building that was shaped like a fortress. But the gag is like the trees had laid down on the ground like dominoes. Like the trees were literally spread out on the ground like dominoes. Like all of the trees just kind of like laid down like dominoes. And I never forget that. And the power wouldn't come on, and people was looting, people was stealing, but I was separated from that, but I was so depressed because there was no power. And I think they found somebody dead in one of the houses that we was living in, like he had unalived himself or something, and when they opened the doors, it smelled like he had been sitting up in there bloating and dying for about a week. And I just went into such a depression. I was, becoming, I was feeling like unaliving myself, coming down off of addiction, not being able to get to more, not being able to self-medicate. But I started to get clarity, and it was time for me to go. I couldn't be there anymore. And so I wanted to go to California, but he couldn't afford to send me there, and there was no way to get to my hometown. And if I did get there, what was I gonna do? Like I get a job when it's hard for cis people to get a job there. So being a trans person trying to get a job there um, would have probably been hard. I would have been too embarrassed to do sex work there because that's where my grandmother lived. Yeah, so that wasn't an option. So um, we decided on Atlanta. Now, mind you, it's normally a 6 hour drive, maybe a 7 hour drive, maybe an 8 hour drive if you drive slow to get to Atlanta. It was a 2 day drive. Traffic was that bad. And so I ended up relocating to Atlanta, and that changed my life. That changed my life. That's where I had my orchiectomy. That's where I got into trans activism. That's where I became a part of the first Black trans ministry in the South. I went to seminary school for about 9 months. Um, yeah, that's where I went to like do some like rehabilitation there, and baby, I shook back. Baby, when I tell you, I went from baby, I started baby. She was getting her bombshell on, honey. But yeah, that's my Katrina story. And yeah, that's my Katrina story. Um, I could share more, but I think that pretty much is the gist of it. Anyway, I love y'all. Laylim Layla Nation, purple ones, rise.